So as today, this is another deep dive, part of our deep dive series, and just very briefly, Mike Hammond's Director of Customer Experience, and I'm responsible for helping ensure that you all out there, if you are a customer, have a positive experience, and more importantly, are getting the value out of the applications that we've helped you design, build, and support. So with that, we're going to just do a quick little, I guess, make sure we're all on the same page and talk a little bit about why PowerApps and Flow in particular what are they addressing, what challenge are they addressing, and why are we so excited about these new capabilities. And in that, if you follow Microsoft at all, you know that Satya Nadella, the CEO, is very famous for saying we are a cloud-first, mobile-first company. You know, they started that that shift a couple of years ago once he took over as the CEO, and I think they've been very much living up to that mantra. But you know, if we think about it, consumer apps are everywhere, right? I think Apple likes to boast there's over 1 million apps. Think about that, 1 million apps on the App Store. That's a lot of apps. And obviously Android also somewhere in that same neighborhood. I don't think quite as many, but they're pretty close to that. My numbers could be wrong, but bottom line, there's a whole lot of apps out there for a whole lot of different things. But what we've seen, you know, so we've got things like, you know, one of my favorites is Vivino for checking out, you know, the wines that you drink. Uber's a fantastic one, right? It's both an app and a service. You know, our calendar apps. There's also our business apps, like, you know, you can get the full Office suite of PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Outlook. You know, and those are all fantastic, but those are kind of lagged behind. The vast majority of apps are game related, or, you know, more, I guess, social and non-work related. You know, but what we find is because apps are so popular in the personal and consumer side of our lives, that, you know, that has translated and transcended into the business side of things. And so now we're at a point where we can truly unleash the power of apps from a business perspective and within your organization. So we can unlock, you know, customer and product information that's stored in either in your legacy systems, in your accounting systems, in your CRM systems, and so it really gives us a fantastic ability to address a lot more challenges. But Microsoft's identified that, you know, there's really, you know, 3 primary things that have caused the kind of the business side of things to lag. One is talent, right? They're all out there building those million other apps. The other is centered around access, right? How can we access the systems that we need, and how can we access the tools that we need? And then agility, right? I don't know if anybody's ever tried to build an app from scratch using the developer tools that are out there. It's not easy, and it does take a lot of time, money, and effort, particularly if you're going to, for example, deploy on more than just one platform. So maybe you need to support both iPhone and Android. And for those folks that still love their Windows phones, new one coming out, maybe you'll be able to still cling a little bit longer to the Windows Phone ecosystem. But regardless of that, you know, it's a challenge to write these applications. So not only that, as I mentioned, you know, if you've ever tried to do it with traditional tools, it's not easy. You have to use, you know, you have to be a developer, and you really have to have some experience in developing those apps. You know, plus the technology keeps changing, right? So we got to take this into effect. As I mentioned, cross-platform, right? You got iOS, you've got Android, and you still got a little bit of Windows out there. And then, because again everybody's doing the other apps, it's harder to find those people skilled enough and that want to work with the organizations. Another big one is disparate data, right? We've got data sources all over internal to our network, so behind our firewalls, as well as and more is happening outside our firewalls through different types of services. So how do we pipe in and connect into those things? You know, so that's the difference between on-premise data and in the cloud data. And all of these different things make it harder to connect to, right? Each one of them has a different way of connecting, authenticating, and all that. So, you know, it becomes a challenge when you also want to include security and single sign-on. So, And then finally is, how do I distribute these apps, right? How do I get them into the hands of my users? There's, again, if you go the traditional route, there's things like called side loading. You have enterprise app stores, so that kind of blocks all the consumer-oriented apps out of your own personal store. You got to be a larger company in order to set those up. Then you just have a lot of additional, I guess, overhead in terms of being able to manage all those things. What we're going to look at today is, and this is meant to specifically address these challenges, is PowerApps. Okay? And PowerApps, in its simplest terms, it's a software service to connect, create, and share business apps. That's the bottom line. And so today we're going to go through a demonstration of that. We're going to build an app from scratch. We're going to use both of these applications. We're going to create a mobile application without writing any code, okay? No code whatsoever. But what we are going to use is the PowerApps application. And we'll go through that. But it's basically, the only coding per se that you have to do are some Excel-like functions. So if you've ever written an Excel function, then you can very quickly and rapidly start to build your own mobile applications. We're going to show that how we can connect to our own data as well as external data. I'm going to show you how easy it is to connect. We're going to show you how it runs on both, in this case I'm going to use a laptop and I'm going to use my iPhone. And you'll see just how easy it is to deploy. And again, what the beautiful thing about this is all now part of, if you have a license to Office 365 or Dynamics 365, these applications are now included, let me repeat that, included in your monthly subscription prices. So these are tools now that you can begin to take advantage of immediately without having to incur additional costs. Okay? So that's the other big thing and why we so firmly believe that Dynamics 365 is truly a game changer. And if you think about it, from just a pieces, parts, tools, technology, application perspective, really Microsoft's one of the few, if only, that has all of these applications that are both cloud-enabled and still, very friendly to your on-premise deployments. We know there's still folks out there that prefer on-prem, and so you're not forgotten in this case. But as we said in this particular session, we are going to focus on the applications called PowerApps and Microsoft Flow. So PowerApps and Flow are the two applications we're going to deep dive on today. And with that, let's talk a little bit about what those applications are. So PowerApps is really the app designer for building custom business apps. Flow allows you to create automated workflows, triggers, and move data between apps and services. Okay? And again, we'll talk about what that means in a real-world environment. So let's first look at briefly PowerApps. Okay? And as I mentioned, PowerApps is a service. It's a Microsoft service, an Azure service technically, as now is Office 365, Dynamics 365. Everything in the cloud is essentially running in Microsoft's Azure environment, or if you prefer, as some folks do, Azure. I think there's probably another couple other pronunciations out there, but we won't go into all those. So basically it allows us to connect to our existing systems and data sources, and you'll see that there is quite a few, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 different application services, cloud-based services that have pre-built connectors that we can tap into using PowerApps and also Flow. Okay. It allows us, it has an app builder, a form builder, to be able to create applications without coding. It's all drag and drop, point and click. And you'll see that coming up. And then, more importantly, it allows us to publish those applications for immediate consumption. Okay. So I can very quickly and easily push these completed applications out to my users, and they can access them through our mobile devices, whether that's smartphones, tablets, and then also just through traditional browser. Okay. And it's really very simple and very easy to start creating your own apps. And in fact, what you'll see here in the demonstration is a lot of the heavy lifting is done for you initially, all automatically, so that the applications become pretty smart in that once you point it at a data source, it's pretty good at figuring out what that intent is and building your like views of the data as well as your edit forms and be able to edit and add new data. Okay? So think about that for a minute. I don't have to know anything about coding, and yet I can point it at a piece of data, and that data can reside pretty much anywhere in a spreadsheet, in an application like Dynamics, whether you're on the sales, marketing, service, operations, financials, or if you've got a SQL server sitting somewhere in your environment, it'll tap into those as well. So we're going to, again, go through that. And then allow you to deploy through any of your mobile devices, tablets, laptops, etc. So basically, in addition to kind of being able to just have it create an application for you on the fly, you can also start from a template, start from your own data, and then, or if you kind of like to just start with a blank canvas, you can do that as well. Now let's touch on Flow. And Flow is, Microsoft says it helps you work smarter. And I agree with that, because anytime that you can automate the mundane is what I've always used, is my phrase that I've used. If the system can do something for you, then design the system to do it for you, right? It helps you be more effective, more productive, more efficient, and allows you to focus more on value-added things. So being more face-to-face with your customers, having more time to outreach with your customers and interact with them. So any of those things that take away kind of the administrative duties and the day-to-day stuff that can and should be automated, you'll see that these tool sets really allow us to do that. Okay. And Flow, just like the PowerApps applications, got now somewhere plus 100 plus templates that are already pre-built, and you just fill in a little bit of data. So for example, if you wanted to have Twitter look for certain keywords or certain hashtags in tweets, and you want that then to create a lead record inside of your CRM, that's all possible because there's a connector for Twitter, and you just basically put in your Twitter login credentials, you put in your CRM login credentials, and you point and click a couple of fields, and you're done. So literally, within 15 to 20 minutes, you can have an application that can take Twitter hashtags and create lead records from the people who use those hashtags in their tweets. All right, say that 10 times real fast. Okay, and very similar to the PowerApps application, it's got its own little form designer and allows you to, again, drag and drop and point and click your way to building workflows. So why do we want to have these apps together? And it's really all around time, resources, price, because it's free, data, getting access to data, and maintaining those applications. Right? So time, resource, price, data, maintenance. So a little bit, I'm going to touch on a couple little things technical-wise before we jump into the demonstration, because I know that this is a question that comes up quite often, and it is that question about if these are web-based or subscription-based services, what about my on-premise data? How do I get to that? And this is very similar if you're familiar with Power BI. There's a thing called a gateway, and now it's called on-premise data gateway. And that provides a secure connection from the PowerApp PowerFlow service that is sitting in the cloud and be able to talk to and communicate to your data and applications that are sitting behind your firewall. Okay? So very quick, very easy to do. You set it up on a small workstation or a small server or somewhere that, a machine that doesn't get rebooted or turned off at night. And then allows it to, it's a pass-through to securely grab that data and push it back and forth. Okay. Now, briefly also give you a couple little other things that are happening on the roadmap that we know of coming in the first half. We're going to see some really nice Power BI integration. We're excited about that because we're also huge fans of Power BI. You're going to be able to package up and kind of turn these into a solution and make them more transportable. There'll also be some more extensions into if you do have some very complex needs. You might need some power that only coding can give us, so they'll be there. Some additional reusable logic and processes that we'll be able to tap into. Some more and better enhancements of the common data platform, more enhancements of the flow, and a number of other things. I'm going to go through all those, but there's some really exciting new things coming out by June of this year for both PowerApps and Flow. Of course, that extends to the rest of the Dynamics and Office suite. If any of you are using it today, you see that those new features and functions are coming out very consistently and pretty rapidly, at least for the most part on a monthly basis. So with that, let's go in and we're going to jump into our demonstration. Okay? And I'm going to create this what's called a project request app. Okay? So let's go into our application here, and I'm going to show you what this is. This is live stuff here now. Right? We are cooking with gas, as they say. And in our own environment, this is our homepage to our SharePoint. And we have, as part of some of our processes, forms that we need to fill out. You can see here's a bunch of different, and these are all just standard SharePoint lists and forms. Okay? So if we want to start a new project, you go to the project forms and you fill out this particular form. Okay? And this form's just, it's a standard data entry form within SharePoint. So I'll let you see what it looks like very briefly. So, customer name, salesperson name, project, etc. But now if we just kind of close this, you'll see I'm going to be taken back to the list view of this. And so now here is all of the data sitting behind this particular SharePoint list. Okay? So we're going to very rapidly create a much nicer, easier to use app to enter in projects, and more importantly, it's going to be deployable on our phones. So no longer do I have to go to a particular section of our website and our SharePoint to be able to do this. I can now do it anytime, anywhere on a mobile device. Okay. So let's go into, and PowerApps is part of our Office 365 Dynamics 365 suite. So as long as it has been, and you have been able to access it, and actually most people can by default, go into PowerApps. So once you start PowerApps, it's going to take you to a form that looks something like, oops, that's the actual form. So let's, we're going to close this out, and we'll just start from scratch. So let's go into our Power Flow here. Oh, I guess I was logged out too long. Hang on a second, it's going to log me back in. Let's go to PowerApps. All right. And as I mentioned in the spreadsheet here, or spreadsheet, in the PowerPoint presentation, there is a number of different applications that we can log into, and you'll see those kind of come into view here. And so I've got a couple recent applications. Here are some demo applications. So you can see that there's a number of pre-built sample apps. So if I want to kind of see how they built them, you can actually open any of these up. It'll make a copy and allow you to edit these for the most part. So you can just start with an app that's already built and see how that works and how to deploy that. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a new application. And I'm going to start this on the web side of things. Now, like Power BI, if you've used that, you can either use an application that sits on your desktop, so Power Apps Studio for Windows, like Power BI has a Power BI designer for the desktop, or you can just write from the web browser, start creating these applications. So think about that. No application can at all needs to be touching my desktop, and I can build mobile applications. Actually, web applications too. They're kind of web-based applications at heart. So we're going in and creating an application here. And I'm going to choose the SharePoint one. So let's go in and see what's going on here. Reload that. And it's going to load this time, I hope. Okay. Well, of course, everything was work. There we go. Wow. All right. So let's start with, as I mentioned, we're going to start from that SharePoint application, SharePoint list from our own internal environment. And so in this case, I've already kind of created a previous connection. And so you can see here it says it knows that based upon the fact that I'm logged in here, it knows all of my SharePoint applications and locations. So let's go ahead. We're going to pick that one. And now it goes out and it looks through SharePoint and it says, oh, here's all the kind of the list and data-oriented things I was able to find. Okay, so we're going to pick this project request form, and then I'm going to connect to it. And so now it's actually building the application for me. Okay, so as we wait for that to build, now sometimes that can take 30 seconds to a minute or so. And so while we're doing that, we'll just kind of let it do its thing. Shouldn't take too long. Hopefully I don't have a, what is it, DMCA notice. Yeah. It is building our application. It's doing a lot of work in the background, so you can't expect instantaneous results. An application is trying to help you out. I'll gladly let it take a few seconds or minute or two out of my life to be able to build an application without having to start from scratch. Okay, looks like it's almost done now. It's building, and boom, there we go. All right, so we now see the beginnings of our application. So I kind of have my main screen or my home screen. I have a detail view. You can think of this as a read-only view. So as I click on the left-hand side here, you'll see that here is a detail view. And then we finally also have an edit view. So think about that. All I did was point this at a SharePoint list, and it created a search view, a detail view, and an edit/add view or form. Okay, pretty sweet, right? So if I wanted to see how that looks from, if I wanted to run that application, I can hit this little run button here, and it'll allow me to actually use the application. So this is what the application, because it was designed for a phone, is going to just have the phone layout, if you will. But let's go ahead and we'll kind of go back to the beginning here and see what that looks like. Okay. And you'll see that it does have, the drop downs that work. So it picked up the fact that there's pick lists in that data set, date fields that are in that data set. So kind of already pre-populated those things based upon the intelligence built into the application. Okay. Let's go back to the beginning here and go to our main screen and start from here. So while it did a lot for us, sometimes it's still not like HAL from what is that movie where HAL 9000, I think it was, that what is it, 21st Century Odyssey or something like that. Anyway, it's not that smart yet. So you'll see that it's kind of a little messy here on this main screen. But fear not, it's very easy to go in and start to modify and clean up those things, which is exactly what we're going to do here. Okay. So we're going to go in and clean up this main form, and so let's do that. So what you'll see here is, I've got these little div things, so that's kind of pulling in some data that I didn't necessarily want. So let's change a few of these fields in this layout to look a little bit cleaner. Okay, so now notice when I click on the box here that it created, it's kind of pointing me to, these are actually the fields that came from that SharePoint list. And then I also have this kind of little, if you're familiar with Excel, right, it has a little function area up here, the formula bar, that you can actually type in formulas. And that's all this is using, is just little simple little formulas. So in this case, the first, what I want for that field to be is project name. Okay? And so there is project name there. And now I want this field to be, I want this one to be like the title field. Okay? And now I want this next field to be maybe the client manager. So let's just say client project manager. Okay, and so we're going to move these around a little bit. So let's see if we have another one here. And this bottom one here on the right-hand side, we're going to scooch that one over. And we're going to change that one to, we want to know what sales rep sold this particular project. Okay. And so there I have the beginnings of a cleaner application. And we're going to take this person here. And now we're going to make it even a little more clear on what those fields are. We're going to add some information here. So I'm going to add a text box. And it's going to see, you'll see it pops up there on the screen. And now I'm going to drag this down right there and move this field over a bit. And in this case, we want the text just to say contact. Okay. So just like Excel, when you put text into a cell in Excel, you surround it by parentheses. Okay. So that just tells Excel in this case, Excel in that case, or PowerApps in this case, that this is just simply a text field that I want you to have basically a label, if you will. Okay. So we're going to have that. That will then sit beside our contact person. Now let's add one more, and I'm going to label what that field is, and let's just call that rep. Okay. So we're going to add a new field. I call that one, oops, rep. And we're going to move that one down a little bit for the right-hand side. Okay, so we'll push that about right there. Okay. So let's look at our application now, and how does it look on that main screen? Looks a lot better. Okay, so I like this now. Okay, so there's the title of the project. There's the customer name. You can see this one didn't have a primary contact. This one didn't have a rep, but oh, this one does. This one has Jim. This one has Ronald. And again, we can continue to clean this up a bit, but we're going to add a little bit more to it. And one thing I'm going to change is the filtering. Okay, when I do a search, I want to search essentially on the project name. Okay, so the way that we change the way that when I type into this search field, what do I want it to do, is we go into what's called basically the browser gallery. So that's your kind of your search, I guess your search control, if you will. And so because I should have done this in the first place, you can paste it here on the right-hand side, or like we've been doing, you can paste it here at the top. Okay. So let's now see what that looks like after I clean this up a tiny bit more. Let's stretch that out, and then we can, so there, that looks a little bit better. And we're going to go in and we're going to look at how our apps is shaping up. Okay, so there, got some better alignment there, got our reps there. If I want to see the details here, we'll go in and see the details. And then that will take me to that particular record view where you see I have a bunch of additional fields. So those are the same kind of fields that are in my form inside of SharePoint. Pretty sweet, right? So far, let's see, we've had less than 10 minutes, and I've got a functioning, right now, web-based application. Let's add a little bit more to this. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit more fancy with the application. And one thing I want to do is I want to give the user, the end user, an indication of the number of records, okay, that are in the list view. Okay? So let's add the ability to show the user how many records are in the list. Okay? And, come on. Okay, so how we do that is we're going to go back to our trusty little text box, and we're going to add another text box, but this time we're going to put it in a different place, and we're going to give it a little bit more color, if you will. So I'm going to drag this down to the bottom. Oops. And we're going to basically kind of hide the last record. All right. And in this case, what we want this to do is we want this to count our records. Okay, so in this case, what we want is the box to say total requests, and a little space there, and I'm just counting the number of rows, and that's the list view. That's the SharePoint list view, and all the data associated with it. Okay, so just count every row that's in that little database in SharePoint and give me a number. Okay, and so since it's kind of hard to see there, let's now go ahead. You know what? I'm going to maybe change the color a little bit here. So let's go into our options, and I'm going to now change the fill color of that particular text box. Okay, so if we go in, there's our fill should be here. There, I think it's just all right. Border color, border style. There we go. Fill. So I'm going to just pick some colors here. Now, you know, there's plenty of places on the web. Just do a search for like RGB color values, and you can even, you know, like if I say what RGB color value is blue, it'll actually give you the numbers behind it so that you can change the colors kind of on the fly using these RGB values. And I want this to be somewhat transparent, and so you'll see there that we've just made a kind of a purple text box. Okay. So now let's do a little bit more fancy thing, and now I'm just going to copy, Control-C, Control-V, and paste that. And now I'm going to slide it over to the right. And in this case, we're going to rename this one, and we're going to give this one something else. We're going to say, in this one, I want it to show me just the number of records that match my search criteria. Okay? So we're going to go back, and we're going to say something like the filtered requisitions or requests. I'm going to count the rows of what's in my browse gallery. Okay, that's all that's doing. And to make it a little more defined, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change the background color of this one a little bit. Okay. Now let's go in and see how our application is looking. Pretty nice. Yeah, I got the new colors in there. And so let's go in and let's do a search on, let's just say, BI. And so it's searching through all that and finding anything with the title of BI in it, and there we go. So I've got a total of 236 requests, and out of those, 11 meet my search criteria of BI. If I do different search criteria, you'll see that, yep, that's going to now flip and that's now just going to show me, oh, there's only one that meets my AA search criteria. Pretty sweet, right? No code, a little bit of function, very simple, very easy to do, and I've already got a really nice application. Okay. So let's go in and we're going to save our work, and then we're going to add a little bit of flow to this. Okay? We want to do some workflow. So in this case, I'm going to save my application, and we're going to call this project request demo. Okay, so project request demo. Maybe I want, maybe I want to get, a little more fancy on the background color, so I'm going to make that orange. And let's see, I kind of want to pick a different icon here. So let's just we'll scroll through and pick one that's, I don't know, we'll just call it that one. Okay, so that's what the end users see in their list of apps. Okay. All right, so we're going to save all of that. All right. So there is my project will be saved in this environment, and we're going to hit save. Okay. So you see, I did one earlier just to make sure everything was working, and it was. Good thing. Now, here's like we see in other browser-based dev environments, there's still a slight lag in some capabilities. So, for example, if I want to add a workflow to one of the screens here, when I'm to add workflow or to add flow, you have to use the desktop version. So it's just a current limitation here, but we're going to just go out and grab the latest, bring it down to my desktop, and then we should see, hopefully, our product request demo, or project request demo. There it is, right? So we're going to download that one to my desktop, and we're going to add a workflow. Okay? And I'll show you what the workflow is going to do, because I pre-created that one as well. And if I go over to my workflows, you'll see that what this is going to do is based upon, I'm going to just add something inside of PowerApps that when that button is clicked, it's going to send an email approval. Okay? And now let's go in and look at what that's doing behind the scenes. And so I just simply picked as one of those services PowerApp, and it just gives me the ability to say, okay, do I need anything else there? No, or it knows when I'm talking to PowerApp. And I want to use Outlook or Exchange to send an approval email. And I then want, once someone replies to that approval request, it's then going to either notify them that it was approved, or it's going to notify them that it was rejected. Okay, very simple workflow, right? So that's what this is going to do when we get finished with our app. So now, let's go in to our desktop version here, and we're going to exit out of the view part. Okay, so this is a live application now. So if I edited any data and hit the save button, if I hit the new button and added a new one, it's all going to actually update our SharePoint list. So let's go in and we're going to add a workflow to one of our screens. And so cue the Jeopardy music while it opens up inside PowerApps Studio for desktop. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, okay, maybe not. Let's see. If that's going to take a little bit longer, then we'll just go to our app that I built previously, just in case Murphy decided to pop up his head, which when you're doing demos, Murphy, you got to learn to be his friend and be ready for him. So let's see. Come on, come on. Come on. I'll give it 15 more seconds here. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, yeah, okay. Whew. Just in time. All right, so we're now going to go to my edit screen. Okay, so let's assume that in my edit screen, that's either when I'm going to create a new project or edit an existing project. And I want to put an approval process on there. Okay, so we go to our edit screen, and now we're going to just slide down a little bit, and we're going to, in the PowerApps parlance, it's called a card. So that's kind of the way that you can separate or, you know, I guess, create a new section, if you will. As you scroll down, you'll see that you can add additional sections to your forms. So that's all this is. A card is, you can think of it as a new section of the same form. Okay? So we're going to add this custom card, and then with it, we're going to first add a button. Okay? And in this button, let's add, come on, custom card. We're going to add a button. There we go. Okay. Yeah. All right. So there we go. We added the new card, and so now we're going to first insert a button here. And then we're going to associate with that button a workflow. So I want to make that button a nice, big, easy to tap button. And then I'm going to also give it a name other than button. Okay. Come on. Scroll. Scroll that button. Okay, well, it's not wanting to, it's acting a little slow for some reason or another here, so let's try to get it to respond. I'll give it another few seconds here, otherwise we'll try and flip back to our finished application and go from there. All right, so let's go see if our action will come up. So within this action, I'll be able to assign an existing workflow, that workflow that we created and I showed you earlier. Okay. And nope. Let's see. Give it another. There we go. It's starting to wake up a little bit. So, and here then is where I associate a flow. So I'm going to click the little flow button here, and it's going to look at what flows I already have created and allow me to use any of those flows that I've already created, or you can just from here, from scratch, start creating a new flow. And so since that's almost here, I'm going to show you how we initiate that button, and then I will go back and I'll flip over to my mobile application and show you how it works in real time. Okay. Come on. All right. Well, since it's not wanting to be friendly and cooperative, I'm just going to go, what you would have, there's another, you pick the flow that you want. It will prompt you if there's any parameters, and then allow you to then associate that button with that flow. So very simple, very easy. So let's go in here now, and I'll show you on my mobile application what this looks like. Okay? So this is my real iPhone, and I'm going to just display it on the screen here. Okay, so the way that these apps get distributed is there is a PowerApps application on the respective Play stores or app stores. And in this case, you'll see as I scroll over in my productivity apps, it's PowerApps there. And I'm going to just flip to my apps, and you'll see that here's that one that I actually went ahead and created earlier. But you'll see that I'm going to go ahead and run this from my app. So I can have any number of these little mini apps running on my application and running on my phone. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick the project request example. And we'll do a quick little search, and then we'll go in and we'll start to create or edit an existing project. Oh, great. Of course. And then see how that workflow works. Yeah, so Murphy's really messing with me today, so let's go back and try to start Roesh. Of course, we have to log in. Please stand by. Because it's part of your Office 365 environment or Dynamics 365 environment, you'll see we actually have the application tied into our Active Directory. So I just use my same login credentials that I use when I log in first thing in the morning. And then let's go ahead and we're going to pick that project request example. There we go. That's much better. That's what I was wanting. And you'll see here it is running on my smartphone. Okay. And so there it is. Let's go in. We'll search for the BI apps. There's the BI ones. Okay. Done. Notice that it did update those correctly. So let's go into our BI consulting and training here. I'm going to look at the read-only view, but now let's go in and edit that. Okay, so now as I edit that and I scroll down, notice that there's that button. That's a button that I was trying to add to our live one. But let's go ahead and assume I made some updates, and I'm going to tap that button. So I tapped the button, and oh, looky there. It immediately sent me an email. So let's go in. I'm going to open up that email. And because it's kind of mobile friendly, it knows this. It'll give me these little buttons, right? So it's very nice in that all I have to do is read my email, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit approve. So I tap the approve button, and you'll see that it's going to say thank you. Your project was registered. And then notice that it just also sent me an approval notification. So there is congratulations. The approval request from the app has been approved and showed who it was approved by. Pretty sweet, right? I know. Think about that. So all in 30 minutes to create a mobile application that runs on my smartphone that now takes place of a form and data entry that I had to go to a certain place in our SharePoint application. Okay? Pretty nice, I would say. Now, I'll also give you, this is also a way that we can do some other things, like, for example, we've got a couple of flows here. I'll show you one of my other flows where I am taking a new record that gets created in CRM, so copy a CRM account and copy it to my Dynamics 365 for operations. So whenever I create a new customer in CRM, I want to create a customer in operations. Okay, so think about that. Traditionally, there's been to get applications to talk to each other, quite a bit of integration work, right? That has to take place. So I'm just going to kind of short circuit this, and I'm going to go into my customers here. And I'm going to create a new customer. Okay, so I'm in one of our sandbox environments, and it's going to be a new account, and we're just going to call this. Keep it simple and easy and to search. I'm going to call this CCC Test Company. And then so what we'll see is when I go into my operations, first let's go into operations and show you that, whether or not we have a CCC customer there already. So let me get that refreshed. And so now, in case you haven't seen this, this is now Dynamics 365 for Operations, the application formerly known as AX. So this is the successor to the AX applications. And so we're going to just go in and look at a list of our existing customers. So I'm going to go into a section here that I can see a list of all customers. So we'll scroll down, and I'm going to go in. Now I could use a search button up here, but I just wanted to make it easy so you can get a nice little list view here. So I go into my sales and marketing, and I go to all customers, and then I'm going to see a customer list here. So there we go. And okay, so you'll see here, they're sorted in alphabetical order, so no customers that begin with C. So we go back to CRM, and I'm going to do CCC test company. We'll do 555-444-2323. Let's go 5 Main Street, some city, and we'll do 30303. And we can add additional fields and information. But we're going to head and save that now. And that is now going to trigger the flow that will push CCCC. If I go into CCCC, it will then show up inside of my operations application. Not yet. And it does sometimes take a minute or two for it to kick off. Okay. And let's go and briefly check on our application. It ran, it succeeded 4 seconds ago, so we should see. There it is. Ta-da! Thank you. You could tell I was starting to worry a little bit. I wasn't sweating, but I was starting to worry about it. So there it is, CCCC Test Company. So think about that. It just now create whatever records I want in CRM and use Flow to push those records into operations, or I can do the vice versa. I can now take information out of my operations, push it into CRM. Okay, all without a lengthy integration process. So now, of course, that's not going to work in every situation, right? If you got thousands of transactions every day or every night, you might want to think of a different way. But for simple, easy type stuff like this, we're just blown away by the capabilities here. Okay? So with that, let's go in and I'll give you a little bit of information here on the pricing. As I said, if you've got Office 365 or Dynamics 365, it is included. Okay, so start using those PowerApps right away and those flows. So and we're here to help you with that as well. If you didn't have Office 365 or Dynamics 365, you can also buy it separately. So you can either have kind of the the slimmed down version for $7 or basically the full boat for $40. That's the PowerApps. And then Flow is also similar. Flow, again, is free with your Dynamics 365 or Office 365 application, or you can pay a little bit more and get additional runs and near real-time type triggers. Okay? So with that, I'm going to leave you with some resources here. They've got some great tutorials out at that link, and a great way to just start learning how to do PowerApps and Flow. And then also a nice community I recommend, powerusers.microsoft.com. Great place to just post questions. There's just hundreds, if not thousands of people out there, and you'll get a pretty quick response if you run into any issues or challenges or just have questions in general. Of course, that's what we're here for as well, so feel free to reach out to us. And I do recommend as a next action, if you want to discuss kind of PowerApps, PowerFlow, and all those capabilities, or you still haven't made the migration to Dynamics 365, let us know. There's some programs out there available, so we may be able to save you some money. And then finally, we definitely encourage you to reach out so you can do a personal deep dive on any of these capabilities. So with that, I think we've got a few minutes left for questions and answers. So Jessica, how are we doing on Q&A?
Great. So yeah, we have a few questions here. One of the first ones is, can PowerApps work offline?
That is a yes, with a little bit of caveat there. It's not what I would call full offline capability today. There is a way that it will cache records. So if you're familiar with Dynamics CRM and kind of its first couple of iterations, it had this ability to work offline with some cached records. So basically, those 267 records that I downloaded on my iPhone, or that I have access to on my iPhone, it will cache those temporarily and allow me to work offline on those. And there's also some special functions you can say specifically to basically save the data into an offline file, then be able to make changes to that offline file, and then it will then upload. So yes, it will work offline. A little extra work that you have to do, and we do fully expect that that's going to get better and more automated in the future.
Great. And the next question is, can I disable PowerApps for certain or all users?
That is just that. It is an all or none. So you can either lock down through group policy and data prevention policies through Office 365 and or Active Directory, but it is it. You can either turn everybody off or turn everybody on. So everybody gets access to the free version if you've got licenses.
Great. There's time for one more?
Sure, one more. Why not?
Okay. Can I secure data and or prevent users from accessing it with PowerApps?
The application does respect security. Okay, so when I logged in and created my app for the project request, I have to log in with my credentials. So from that perspective, if there were certain sections of SharePoint or certain pieces of data that my security didn't allow me to see, the PowerApps will respect that. So it does fully respect your data rules, if you were. Same thing on the CRM side of things and the operations side. In order for me to be able to update the data and create new records, edit data records, I have to have the right security level. So hope that answered that question.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Mike.
And thank you. Thank you, everybody.